Today, we're jumping right into a story that is just foundational. It's about a spiritual lineage, a promise that was completely shattered, and the agonizing wait for it to be restored. We're going to see how one single tragic event could threaten a divine plan, and what it took to finally set things right.
The death of Abel, it wasn't just the loss of a son. For his parents, it felt like the end of everything. All the hopes, all the dreams, every single plan Adam and Eve had for the future, it all seemed to die right there with him. It was like the end of a divine promise.
Can you even imagine that feeling? After everything they'd already been through, all their efforts to raise an honorable posterity, it just seemed to collapse into absolute failure. Their chosen heir was gone, and the future of their entire lineage was thrown into question. So to really understand the incredible restoration that comes later, we first have to grasp the sheer depth of this crisis. We've got to explore just how completely and utterly hope was lost.
Well, the thing is, the terrible news didn't arrive all at once. The source material paints this picture of a dawning horror, a slow, agonizing discovery that started with a simple parental question. Where is Abel?
You can just feel the dread building, can't you? It starts with that familiar parental worry. A son doesn't come home when he's supposed to. That worry just escalates into a frantic search, with Adam's mind probably racing through all these horrible possibilities. An accident, maybe an animal attack, but the reality he finds, it was so much worse than anything he could have possibly imagined. And then came the impossible task, carrying his son's body home to break the news to his mother. This right here, this really shows you the true scale of the loss. Because this wasn't just a family tragedy, it was a spiritual catastrophe. Abel was meant to be the heir to the priesthood, the authority to lead God's work on earth. He was the one who was supposed to carry the entire gospel plan forward. With him gone, that whole structure just seemed to crumble, leaving nothing but sorrow. And this wasn't a grief they just moved past quickly. No way. The source describes it as a long-term trauma, a period of years where Adam and Eve were basically tormented by the memory of what happened and what they had lost. But then, after years spent in that darkness, the story takes this pivotal turn. This is where hope finally starts to reemerge, and it's all centered on one single promised individual. Just when it seemed like all was lost, the birth of another son brought a complete shift in everything. It marked the dawn of what the text actually calls a happy and abundant life for Adam and Eve. A new beginning. And get this, to really understand the sheer length of their waiting and their sorrow, consider this number. Adam was 130 years old when this new heir was born. That's over a century of living with that void, that sense of failure, before the promise of a new beginning finally arrived. And his name was Seth. See, he wasn't just another child. He was specifically described as the one appointed to replace Abel. His birth wasn't an accident. It was the answer to their prayers and the solution to their crisis.
Okay, but Seth's birth was really only the first step. It wasn't the whole solution. After the tragedy with Cain, the standards for this new heir were higher than ever. He was going to have to prove himself worthy.
Think about it. Abel was seen as the ideal. So what qualities would this new son need to have to not only fill that role, but to restore his parents' faith in the future? What would it take? Well, the source outlines some truly remarkable qualifications. Seth was clearly not an ordinary child. He reportedly had a unique appearance that just astonished his father. He was highly educated in language and writing, and his sermons were even recorded for posterity. And, above all else, he had to prove his valor and his worthiness for the priesthood. And this makes perfect sense, right? The experience with Cain made Adam extremely cautious. He wouldn't, and he couldn't, pass on this sacred responsibility to anyone until they had proven, without any doubt whatsoever, that they were ready and righteous enough to handle it. So did Seth meet these incredibly high standards? Well, this final part of our story shows how he not only met them, but actually exceeded them, finally securing the future that had once seemed completely lost forever. The path to securing the future was finally clear. Seth is born, he proves himself valiant, and he is ordained. But the true seal of success, the real proof, comes when he has a son of his own, Enos, ensuring the righteous patriarchal line would not be broken again. The succession was finally secure. And so, the story comes full circle. The very hopes, the dreams, the plans that went into the grave with Abel, they were resurrected through Seth. The failure was reversed, and the purpose of Adam and Eve's life was reaffirmed. And this entire incredible story leaves us with one final, pretty profound question from the source material. If Seth's line was the one chosen to continue, what does that imply about all of humanity that followed? It's a fascinating thought, isn't it? About the legacy of the son who restored hope to a broken world.